Welcome to Experience Matters with Eric Newton. I'm Eric Newton, and this is Mayor Robert Halfacre. We're glad to have you on the podcast with us.
Great to be here.
Yeah, appreciate you. We know you're a busy man.
No,
Got
not
a
busy.
lot.
No.
You got a lot going on. So, no, I really do appreciate you joining me on this podcast. It means a lot. So, so we'll just dive right in.
Sounds perfect.
I know you've got limited amount of time, so I'll be respectful of that, and we'll just chat. I kind of wanted to just spend the first part of the podcast just getting to know you a little bit. I mean, obviously I know you. You're a native. You grew up here just like me. You went to Daniel High School, and I think didn't you graduate in 1990? Is that right?
You knew that.
Yeah,
that's impressive, Eric.
Yeah. So you're a lot older than me.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that in front of your daughter too. I appreciate that.
Yeah. No. So I think you were in school with Laura, right? Were you in school?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we're the same class.
Yeah, you're same class with Laura, and a couple years behind my brother Mike.
Yep. I think so. Let's say Mike graduated in
88.
Okay, 2 years.
Yeah. So, but point is, you're a native.
I am.
Yep, and it's cool that we have a mayor of our town that's a local guy. So I know you've
been here almost 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know you went to Georgia.
We don't say that too much. No, I did go away.
You did
for
go
my
away
education.
Yeah, and you and I share something in common with our majors. I was a finance major, and you were a finance major.
That's right.
But it was I think it was a BA at Georgia, and it's a BS here. Yeah,
correct.
So, but did you have a concentration area?
No, it was finance. So, and fortunately, I went straight into banking right after college, so it worked out well. Yeah. Actually, during college, I was working for a bank, so I started really early. So, I was
So you worked
like literally during the summers. You wouldn't call it truly an internship because basically I was working within the bank, and I just applied and it worked out. But for 4 different summers before I actually started on the teller line within the banking industry. And you talk about learning everything in the banking industry, that's the way to do it, because you learn about everything on the teller line. So it was a great experience.
I always thought it would be fun to be a teller.
It was great. I mean, one of the hardest workers within, and also you see every customer that comes in, so the face of the bank. So it's great.
What bank was that?
So this will show my age. It was South Carolina National, and then became Wachovia.
Okay.
So yeah, and then it became Wells Fargo.
And was that at the downtown branch, or was it the one?
So I did the one on 123 right there in Clemson, and then also worked downtown as well. So I got to go back and forth.
So I mean, you really have been in the banking industry pretty much your entire adult life.
4 banks over 30 years. So between Wells Fargo, First Citizens, BB&T, which became Truist, and then I'm very thankful the last 8 years with Park National, which was Carolina Alliance before that.
So, to Park National, is that it's an Easley, right? Is it an Easley or?
So our base location here is Easley, but I cover commercial for Oconee, Pickens County, a little bit of Greenville, a little bit of Anderson. So I'm kind of all over the place.
So where's your office?
The base office is in Easley.
Oh, okay.
For me.
And that's where you.
And then our base office as a corporation bank is in Ohio. So.
And you're doing primarily commercial lending?
It's pretty much what I do every day.
What kind of loans? What kind of loans are you doing these days?
You name it. Just helping a lot of businesses. I love it. And same businesses I've been working with for over 20 years. So it's really a great experience. I've seen them grow, thrive. It's been perfect. So it's been a good situation.
So are you doing like lending on buildings?
Okay, yeah, I could have been a little more specific. Sorry. I'm doing lending on, financing a purchase of a building, financing their equipment needs, their working capital needs, you name it, whatever a business owner needs. And that's where I'm talking about. What's really cool is literally I've been working with the same businesses for 20 plus years. And so I've seen them when they first started, basically, and that growth more than people probably want to know on a business cycle, but the growth. And then now they're at that mature type growth business cycle, which is really cool.
Do you work with any businesses that have inventory that you have to finance the purchase of the inventory?
Yep.
That's pretty cool. I don't know a whole lot about that. So I'm always fascinated about other businesses. I've been in real estate and development my whole life. So it's just,
Help a lot of real estate agents.
yeah.
So
So,
fortunate.
so how did your finance degree, this is going to sound like an obvious question, but how did your finance degree help you with what you're doing now?
In what capacity? And
Yeah,
as
like,
serving as mayor or serving as
no,
commercial
sorry,
banker?
on the banking. I'll get to
Okay.
the
Okay.
I'll get
All
to the
right.
mayor
So,
thing in a
because
minute.
I could tell you that one too.
Yeah.
So from the banking side, no, the finance degree obviously started at an early age, but really in banking, you really learn as you go. When I say that, experiences with working with clients, um, establishing that credibility with clients, and then thankfully, like I said, just been working with the same clients, and they know who I am and I know who they are. I know a lot about their families. I know about a lot about my family, which is really cool. And so we've all been part of it for the last 20, 30 years. So other than my time when I moved down to the coast for about 5 years, that was the only time that I kind of went away for a little bit and then came back. But thankfully came back to the upstate.
Where were you, in Beaufort?
So I covered Beaufort County. And so when I say covered, it was a de novo type situation, startup for First Citizens. And so I was responsible for the commercial and retail side. Um, and it was the best of times and the worst of times, because I went down there when everything was thriving, everything was great, and then the recession. So I learned a lot from that experience.
Yeah.
And so did many other employees, and so did many other community members. So we got through it.
So did you have any good war stories, banking war stories?
There's a few, but without going into specifics, because next thing I know, someone of them might put two and two together.
Oh yeah,
they might say,
true.
They might say, I know that client, but no, thankfully, like I said, we all worked through it. It was just part of learning. That was the first time in banking that I ever experienced really downtime.
Right.
And so now, it helps for the future, and not only future, present, when I'm working with clients.
Yeah, the recession was a crazy period. I learned a lot. I tell people all the time, what I went through was rough. I mean, it was really rough, and I basically had to regroup and rebrand and I basically started over. Now I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, because it was I learned so much, but I wouldn't want to go through it again.
I could say the same thing. You learn a lot. You take those experiences down the road, and you put them into play. So yeah, I think I said that very well.
How, when did you know that? Obviously you went away to Georgia, came back. When did you know that you wanted to build your life here and raise your family here? Was it ever a question that you wouldn't, or?
Never a question. Always wanted to be here. Thankfully, I met my wife in banking, and so she had, just for everybody's knowledge, she never lived in one place very long, more than 3 to 4 years. Her dad was military. Thank you for his service. And he, they moved around a lot, and so when we actually met, and she stayed here, this is the longest she's ever stayed somewhere.
Oh, nice.
20 plus years later, we've been married for 23 years. So
2 kids.
One's, I'm going to cringe a little. Both were fortunate enough to get in Clemson. Both decided to go off. I understand, they wanted to get away. Blake's currently, our son went to Western Carolina. I say this, he did have a little too much fun, but he came back home, and he's actually out in Colorado now, working at a golf course, living with my brother-in-law and his family, which is a great experience for him to be able to do that. And then our daughter is finished her first year at Auburn. Okay. So she's another Tiger, but a different Tiger, but it's okay. Yeah. We're very fortunate. She had a great experience. She did very well academically. So we're proud of her. Yeah. Proud of our son as well.
Well, I bet that's hard. She went to Auburn, being a Georgia grad.
I'll let you know, Eric. My wife's already converted to Auburn. She doesn't even care about Georgia anymore.
Do you have any Auburn?
I do, and I've already been criticized from my friends from Georgia, just so you know, for wearing Auburn gear. But I'm like, this tuition dollars are going towards Auburn, so I'm going to support that school. That's exactly. I'll leave it at that. So, and also, she's had a great experience. And for the record, everybody should know this. Obviously, when Georgia and Clemson play, I say it all the time, I will never cheer against Clemson. Always Clemson. When Clemson played Georgia in Charlotte, obviously was supporting Clemson all the way. It didn't have the result that I wanted, and Georgia won. But anyway, just to make sure we clearly communicate.
Yeah. Okay.
That.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. We know where your allegiances are. No,
Well, growing up here,
Yeah.
I love this area. We're very fortunate.
Well, it's funny because, there are a lot of folks like that grew up, went to Daniel, or grew up in the area. They just wanted to get away, and but their allegiances have always been with Clemson. I've got lots of friends that went to other schools, and but they pull for Clemson over the school they went to. So, that's pretty cool. It tells you a little bit about how special this town is and everything. The town and the Clemson University is, and so I've always thought that was pretty cool. So, so to tell now, let's talk about your mayoral duties. Okay. So you've been mayor since, I think you got elected in 2018, and you were started in 2019. Is that right?
So I've been on city council almost 6 years. Been mayor almost 4 years, 3.5 years to be exact.
Okay.
Up for re-election, not technically, in November. So
okay.
4-year term.
Yeah. Okay. So you're going to run again?
I am.
Oh, good.
I am. So
good.
Yeah.
So how's your banking career helped you with your mayoral duties?
So first of all, the bank's been very supportive. I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for the bank being supportive, because I always tell people too, I love giving back, love being in the role and trying to help others. But if the bank didn't support it, because the bank takes care of my family financially, that job is the one that literally takes care. I keep on saying it takes care of my family.
Right.
But going into the role itself, from the financial side, being mayor, it helps you a lot from the fiscally being responsible. Because one of my things coming in was like, let's make sure we're sound financially as a city. Obviously, I think it's something maybe people don't want to talk about anymore. But we first started when I was in the role. We had COVID, which was a tough time for all to balance that. Keep people safe, but obviously, allow businesses to still survive. I always would say survive. Now they're thriving, which is great. 3 or 4 years later, I should maybe say 2 or 3 years later. But that was that I think the banking aspect helped me with that, just to kind of say, okay, we can get through this. We just got to be fiscally responsible. Now coming in off of COVID, much better. But then we've had other challenges too. I don't know if a lot of people know this, and Eric, you probably know this, but even when we started on when we started on city council, when I started in the role as mayor, we had 6 or 7 department heads within 6 months either retire, leave, or basically those were the 2 reasons. And so there was a lot of transition within the city.
Yeah, I didn't think about it that way, but you're right.
I think actually we had 7 department heads. And so, people kind of forget that. And it was a tough time. When I say tough time, we knew we were going to get through it. But the banking helps me because I've seen a lot of challenges with clients, and they've gotten through it. We work together, and that's all part of it. And that's the same thing with the city. We got through it. Andy Blundo's done a great job. Hired Allegan also as deputy administrator.
I like both of them. Yeah.
They both done a great job leading the team, but it's been quite a if you quantify it from a municipality having 6 or 7, that's a lot for a municipality to lose that many departments. And I say lose. I'm very thankful. Half of them retired. Great for them. Great for their families. I'm happy for them. But obviously, it was a loss for us. But fortunately, a lot of the department heads, there was a lot of succession aspects going into play. A lot of them were hired within the departments. We did have some external hires. Obviously, we had a new chief that came in. He's done a great job. Had a lot of experience from Gainesville, Florida. So he's done a tremendous job. We had a new planning director that came in from outside. He's done a great job. So we've been fortunate. I could keep going. We've been very blessed.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, and that's an important thing, I think, for people to understand. And maybe some of us tend to forget at times that y'all are pretty much volunteers. I would
say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's face it. You're volunteering your time. I was on planning commission for a little while, and there's a lot of time effort that you put into it. I mean, there's you don't get a whole lot of reward other than, I mean, as far as other than just, you're doing something good for the community. And some people may not always see it that way, but I certainly have a high level of respect for those individuals that are willing to subject themselves to a lot of the scrutiny and everything that goes along with those roles. And so it's hard to make everybody happy. And I think people tend to forget that y'all are volunteering your time, and it's a really critical part of our our process in our country, and it's a very important part of our process. And if there weren't people like you that are willing to do it, I mean, I don't know where things would be. And so I try to be very respectful, of those individuals that do volunteer their time. I mean, because you're, probably how many hours you think you spend a week?
I don't want to ever quantify it because it might stress me out too much.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
But yeah,
so,
I certainly appreciate what y'all do, and so,
but I will go and I'm going to add, what you just said. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing it for the right reason, you're giving back. You said
Right.
when you served on planning commission, we greatly appreciate it. Every volunteer within every committee we have, we realize people are literally just giving back, but they have other jobs. And most importantly, I always give the prioritization, God and family first, always.
Right.
I always say that to everybody because I believe it. I live it. If you do that, but people are willing to volunteer their time, and we greatly appreciate it. And you say we're volunteering, we are, but I consider it having basically another full-time job.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, you have 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah. So,
and it's great that the bank gives you that flexibility.
They do.
Because they are the ones that are, that's how you earn your income. And
you got it.
So it's great that they're allowing you to do that. And I mean, and I see you around everywhere. I mean, I don't know how you do it. You're at just about every event that is out there. I mean, were you at the downtown event last night? Oh yeah, Ella said she saw you.
Yeah, I was there.
Yeah. So
did you see me? I was setting up tables. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the mayor was cleaning up.
That gets even better. Yeah. So last night was a prime example. We're all trying to give back, but we all set up. We're very fortunate. We have 4 public works employees that help us out. And I say help us out. They do a lot of the hard lifting and labor, but we set up the tables. Yeah. And then we break them down. But actually, after we set up, I left because we had a Pickens County Municipal Association meeting in Norris. And so
oh my goodness.
We meet once a month. We'll take a break during the summer, but it's a great opportunity for municipality employees, not only just elected, but from administrator, get together, just talk about common areas, things that we can help each other within the whole county. And so we meet, but this year I'm chairing it. So I could not be there, I guess I should say. But it worked out well. I left, we ran a meeting, and then we came back. Or I came back, I should say we.
Oh, nice.
So yeah. And it was actually a place for my daughter. I don't know if you've been out to the tumbling out there. Did you ever tumble? Okay. It's Norris used to have the High Power Elite used to be out there. So I used to take my daughter out there years to go out to the Norris Community Center. So brought back some good memories too last night. So
yeah, that's great. So I know there's been a lot going on in the town. Is there anything? Well, before we get into what stuff like that's been going on recently, tell us like what's been your most rewarding experience as being the mayor so far.
So mine is just seeing how things have now started to come to fruition. And when I say that, there's been a lot of planning. Sometimes you don't always see it, but I think this city council's worked very hard, as well as previous city councils. But I always tell people we're not doing the work; it's the city employees. So we may have some of the vision, we may have some of the we're getting a lot of the engagement for the community, and we're going to obviously take that and try to put that into down the road in some capacity. What I say that is like seeing Clemson Park finally start to evolve, where it's a little more. If you don't know about Clemson Park, there's literally there's different stages, and we have to do it in stages because financially we want to make sure we do it right, but we also want to make sure we save and put the things in place. But just the future there, when you think about it, when we already have the pump track. If you haven't been out there, please go out there. But it's for all ages, and I say all ages. I've seen all ages use the pump track, but then we're going to have a skate park. The plan is also have a splash pad. Those things are going to evolve. So that's just one of many areas. But again, that's a lot of employees working together. Yes, we're helping from city council's perspective, but it's a lot of community engagement too. Mentioning here's what we like to see, and I think we're covering more of the ages. I don't know about you, but I felt like there was a gap. I mean, I felt like there's a lot of things to do in Clemson if you're very young, but then once you're a teenager, it's a little more difficult.
Right.
But if we can create more of that environment, and it doesn't all have to be sports related, but it does create getting outside. I'm very big on that. So trails, pump track, skate park, splash pad, you name it, expanding nettles, pickleball courts, you name it, all that's coming, and we're excited about all that. So the difficulty for me is I'm not as patient as some people. I wish I had no, I tried. I'm getting better, but a lot of these things have been planned for like 2 or 3 years. So to answer your question, it's a long answer. That's the most gratifying. See it all come to fruition after years of planning, years of input, and putting it all in place.
Yeah. Yeah, because it takes time to get some of these. I mean, I've been on the Green Crescent board for a really long time when it first started.
10 plus years.
Yeah. And so just now seeing a lot of those projects start to come to fruition has been awesome. I mean, we knew it was going to be a marathon, not a sprint, and I'm like you, I get a little impatient too, but it just takes time. You have to get the funding, and there's a process. And so, yeah, I mean, it is really cool. I've seen how you've made that a big priority over the years, and that's very, very appreciative. Appreciate all you've done for the Green Crescent Trail as well.
I mean, that's a prime example. Have phase one actually have a walking trail, and then it's great. And you know this, Eric, you're on the board. Just partner with Clemson University too to have that extension through Gateway to Perimeter. That's going to be huge.
Yeah,
we just hope more people start to use it. So I commend Carrie, who actually led a group last Thursday night. We all walked it. There was probably, I don't know, 20, 25 people out there, but the more people we can get out there. And we started at Clemson Park, went over to the backside of Gateway Park, and then came back.
Right. So, yeah. And you said something a minute ago that I wanted to touch on too, just about the employees, that work for the city. I mean, yes. And they do a lot, and it's a thankless job as well. So, and that's something that I noticed from my days being on planning commission. And of course, doing what I do, I have to work with a lot of those individuals a lot. And I know they catch a lot of grief for a lot of things that they're bound by the ordinances and the rules, and they have to enforce. And so it's a tough job. And so I feel like I needed to also reiterate that as well, that you're they're the ones executing what y'all are putting into place from an ordinance standpoint. And it's a really, and I'm very respectful of that too. Sometimes I, over the years I may have butted heads with some, but I've always tried to be very respectful, of them. And I do appreciate what they do and what they're faced with every day. So especially with a lot of the stuff that's going on, which is a perfect segue into. So tell us a little bit about what you've been working on, like some of the. I know. I mean, y'all have a lot of things that come across your plate, but tell us some of the things that maybe people don't get as much publicity, and then let's the giant elephant in the room, like whatever.
Ask away.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, well, first of all, I'll tell you that right now it's obviously the budget time. Planning for the future, making sure we're fiscally, and that's where the banker comes into play a little bit from my experience. Not that I know all, I don't, but can help with that. Leslie's done a great job, our finance director, putting it all together with her whole team. So first reading will be this Monday night for the budget. We also have a public hearing before that. So that's the most important that's coming up. What's also been really cool in the last couple of months, and actually the last couple of years, is just recognizing so many. I'm going to keep on saying so many state champions, achievements from local from our youth. It's phenomenal. I mean, we don't take it for granted. Someone said the other day, y'all keep on recognizing state champions. I said, we'll do it as long as, I mean, because it's not always going to be here.
It's a big deal.
We're not, we're not taking this lightly, and we're very fortunate. We'll recognize Monday night some of the track champions, which will be great. They've done a great job as well. And, this is the spring aspect. Of course, we've had many other but it's not just sports. There was a chess team that got state championship, band, phenomenal for years. So keep that in mind. That's where you asked what's been most gratifying. It's just really not that I think it's great that we recognize them, and I'm so glad we do it. But it's just seeing their achievements. I'm just happy for them and their families, because there's a lot of energy and effort that goes into that, and so we know that, and so it's really cool.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you remember, but my youngest daughter, Davis, the 12U girls all-star team won the state championship. Yep. And the way we went about, we're combined with City of Central and Clemson, so it's a combined city, and we were playing counties. I mean, they were bringing the best girls to their teams from those entire counties, and we won the entire state. I mean, we won the state championship. It was a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
And I mean, we beat Richland County, that huge county. If you think about the population of that county compared to what we have here, and we beat that huge county in the state championship. And which, by the way, I don't know if you know the story behind it, but so we won our district, I guess it was, in Easley, and we had to beat a really good Malden team and a really good Seneca team who won last year. One state that age group won last year. We beat Malden. They're always like a perennial powerhouse in girls basketball, and then we beat Lawrence in the final to go to the state championship. And then we played Beaufort County, beat them, and then lost to Richland County as a double elimination tournament. Shouldn't have lost the game. And then had to turn around and play. Was it Myrtle Beach? I think it was Myrtle Beach. We played beat Myrtle Beach. I think it was Myrtle Beach. We played the first game and then beat them the second game. And then had to play Richland County and beat them twice the next day to win the state. And we beat them twice to win the state. So it's pretty incredible, and it's incredible to see the amount of state championships that our schools put out. I mean, with the football, with soccer, and every sport is amazing year after year. And then the academic achievements. I mean, let's not forget about that. Clemson, Central, 6 Mile Elementary all feed into Edwards and Daniel, and I mean the academic aspect of things is incredible. We put out a lot of smart kids that go on and do great things. And so
they're much smarter than me.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Well, going back to, to your point, that's so impressive. Congratulations again. You'll actually be in the community connection. I'm not supposed to say too much about the community connection that comes out, because it's supposed to be a surprise when it comes out. But in about a week and a half, or maybe about a week, it's coming out. But there'll be a nice picture of y'all and the team recognition. It's in there, so I think it's great.
Well, so my girls. So I'm coaching that same team. I'm coaching. It's an AAU team. Right. We do most of our practices over at the rec center, and but almost every single practice, they're like, "When are we getting our banner? When are we getting our banner?" I said, "It's coming. It's coming."
That's the most important.
Absolutely. They want the banner. So I know. I said, "It's coming. It'll be there." You
can do back to back.
Yeah. Well,
soccer's done 3 times, so why not?
Well, unfortunately, they're cycling. These girls,
so they're cycling.
They're going to go to.
They'll keep on. They'll go to Edwards and you'll get it. So
but they're going to be. This group of girls is going to be really good. They're special. But so that's all that stuff's cool. I'm glad you do that too. That's a really neat thing that you do. I see you recognize lots of different people and groups quite often, and I think that does a lot of different things. One, it recognizes people for their hard work. these kids for their hard work, and the volunteers, the coaches that coach them, because they are volunteering their time too. But it also highlights, how wonderful you know, our programs are, and it it also, it kind of lightens things up in those meetings. Those meetings can tend to get, there's a lot of times there's controversial topics, and we all have to remember. I agree with you. God and family first, and what's the point of all this? Is to create a this quality of life for everybody. I mean, and so I don't think that anybody in any of those on the council or planning or any of those groups, I don't think they want people to have miserable existences. I think the goal is just to make things better, and there may be differing opinions on how how that happens, and that's generally where the rub is. But you have to make a lot of people, or try to make a lot of people happy, and you're basically trying to enhance quality of life for the residents of the area, and the impact that your decisions you have are big. So
Oh, absolutely. And I'll just, I'll add to that. I mean, really, I mean, everybody that's serving in all these roles, city council, community, city employees, you name it, community members, we're all in this together. And you'll notice every time when in the community connection, it's a very positive message that I want to share.
mhm.
It's not that we're ignoring the challenges. There are lots of challenges too, and you keep on saying we'll talk about it. I'm here to talk about whatever, because we are in a very tough situation. I mean, we're less than 10 square miles. I'll go ahead and just start talking
Yeah.
about it. It's very tough to balance growth in a desirable area. There are a lot of people that want to be here. And when you're in less than 10 square miles and you try to compare us to other large university communities, and I say obviously Clemson University is very large, but we also have two other great institutions, Southern Wesleyan and Tri-County. We're very fortunate. But when you have those challenges, especially, and I'll specifically talk about Clemson University, they're going to challenge the city. And when I say challenge it, it's like we all have to try to balance it to the best of our ability. And I'll keep on emphasizing less than 10 square miles is very difficult, because if you try to compare us to, I'll throw out Auburn, they're, I think, 60 square miles. And they're also the same municipality. A lot of people probably don't know that. The city of Auburn is actually, well, I should say Auburn University is part of the city of Auburn. And when I say that, I think it makes it a little bit easier.
Mm-hmm.
Clemson University is a separate municipality. Obviously, the city of Clemson is a separate municipality. It doesn't mean we're not working together. There's a lot of collaborative efforts. We highlighted that at the state of Clemson. When the president spoke, when I got a chance to speak, there's been a lot of things going on for 20 years. Great partnerships in certain areas. And we weren't just saying, okay, that's all the great areas. You also need to talk about the challenges. And growth is one of them. Traffic's one of them. And how do you balance all that? So,
Right.
ask away questions now. Now that I teed it up for you.
Yeah, there you go.
I teed it up for you.
So, I mean, obviously, the university is continuing to grow enrollment. I think the stats that I see, published annually, they're somewhere between 600 and 800 students a year.
2%.
Yeah, 2%. So, I mean, and there's no real end in sight for that. That's 600 to 800 students. That's pretty significant.
Great.
Obviously got to hire faculty. It appears that the university is more focused on academic buildings and sports facilities, which is really cool. You got to be able to. I don't know. I've never had the conversations with the powers that be about it. You probably have, but I imagine that you got to have the buildings to support the students first. And they've sort of allowed the private sector to handle the housing in the community. So I know that's a sore subject for a lot of folks in the area. I will say that university, if it weren't here, we wouldn't be here. I think this is I mean, obviously you and I both grew up here. We love this town for a lot of reasons, and one of the many reasons is because of the college, and I'm I love it and want to be here for many reasons, but I love the fact that it's a college town. But
can I add to that real
yeah,
quickly?
yeah,
And then so to bring it up, and maybe a lot of people don't know, my dad's been at Clemson University for over 50 years.
yeah.
He's still working for Clemson University. It's really cool. But to your point, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad making that transfer from NC State to here in 1974. And so I'm so thankful he did. I didn't have a choice. I was 2 years old. So I just, I'm very thankful it all worked out. But to your point, we wouldn't be here.
Right. Fun fact, he taught me my first class at Clemson.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Okay.
He sure did.
All right.
My very
He's
first
a pretty laid back dude.
I don't know
if you figure that out. He's pretty laid back.
He's laid back.
You know the role he's in now, right?
No, I didn't.
All right. So for the last 20 years, he's been the ombudsman. He handles the grievances between faculty and staff.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I can't even imagine that role. And I can't talk to him. And I mean, we have a close relationship, but I can't even talk to him, obviously, from a confidentiality aspect. But it takes a certain type of personality to do that role. And so I think he's done a pretty good job from what I've gathered. So, but anyway, that's what he's doing now. He's not teaching per se anymore because he was teaching. I know he was teaching horticulture, landscape architecture. He was also teaching introductory, like when freshmen came in, he was helping with those classes as well. Which was
that was the one.
The summer session.
Yeah,
basically preparing you for college. Is that the one? Okay.
Well, I want to say it was some kind of horticulture. I don't know.
So then if you took me out.
Yeah, but it was obviously a freshman level class, but it was the very first class I took at Clemson. So they didn't have summer start when I was there, but I just chose to start early because I just wanted to
Smart move.
Yeah. And then I had him for one of my classes.
Cool.
But so that's cool. But yeah, so but I think we do have limitations in land area. I know the annexation is something that maybe is on your radar. Or is that something that y'all are focused on, or are you more focused on? I know y'all are so busy with everything else, but have y'all identified certain areas that you'd like to annex into the city?
So I'll answer that question. There's not a lot of places the city can grow, because if you think about you can't grow towards Oconee County across the bridge. That's pretty much not an option. A little bit maybe towards Pendleton, so said a little bit, but it's a good partnership with the town of Pendleton, obviously. And you know how annexation works. It's the property owner coming to us. We're not actively going out, but we do know we need to grow in some capacity. We want to make sure we grow in the right way. We want to make sure it's the right decision. Mm-hmm. So we've actually, I'll give credit to this existing council. They've done a really good job literally vetting out annexation, working with the Municipality Association of South Carolina to literally have a formula of where it makes sense, make sure it makes sense for the property owner to come in, makes sense for the city. So, but there's not many places to grow for the city of Clemson, if you think about it. Obviously down 123, possibly a little bit towards Pendleton. A lot of people, I don't think they've lost sight of it because it's not happened yet, but it's getting ready to happen. Think about the vet school on 76. Yeah. That's going to be a huge impact. Not only it's a great impact from an economic development side. You'll have lots of students. I think almost 100 the first year when it starts in 27. If I'm doing, I think it's right. Either 26. I think it's 27. But think about all the different families that'll be coming in and supporting the school. Mm-hmm. That area will change drastically. And how do you support it? It's a partnership with the town of Pendleton, Anderson County, and the city of Clemson. So keep that in mind. So that's where I see growth. But there's not a lot of areas for Clemson to grow. So
what type of growth?
Wide, I guess you should say. So,
right. What type of growth would you prefer to see?
So I think, I'll give a little bit of history. We did, there was a moratorium that was put in place for high density growth, over 200 units, 200 beds, I should say specifically. And I think that helped because we got the Clemson Next. And for anybody listening, please look at clemsonnext.com. It's 80 plus pages, but it talks about really planning for the future. And we got outside consultant to come in to work with us, to engage the whole community. and put a plan in place of how do you protect neighborhoods? How do you also balance the growth? We know it's coming. We know there's a demand on our planning department, ultimately goes to planning commission, ultimately goes to city council. And really what we focused on is catalyst areas within the city where high density is appropriate in specific areas, but still protects neighborhoods because it's not, it's already established areas that we feel like is very good, especially if it's going to be for student housing per se, because it's walkable to campus. It should eliminate. As I said, it should eliminate cars on a daily basis, but they're still going to. People are still going to use their cars.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I've heard some comments like, "Yeah, cars are not parked for the whole week." You're still going to go out and run errands. We get it. I mean, but if you can create an environment where it's more walkable, more bikeable, and they're close to campus, the tendency is they're not going to take the cars out because it's trouble to go parking on campus and things like that. So the Clemson Next is a pretty good. I mean, I think it's been really good. It's a guideline. We always tell people it's a guideline that it shows areas within the city that could potentially work with more high density, but it also balances to make sure. I mean, like myself, I live downtown. I know that we all want to. It's not about me per se. What I'm saying is it's more of just we want to protect also what we have within our neighborhoods, and you can do those things if you work with the developers and you work with the companies, and I say companies, individuals on different projects. And so, but again, I will reiterate and I'll say this, and I know people have heard this many times. I feel like after you do your homework and after you do everything, as long as you do what's best for the whole community, I feel like you've done what you're supposed to do and you've done the right thing and sleep at night.
So. Right. So what would you say to someone that says that, and let's set housing aside for a minute, because housing tends to be like the most controversial. You hear a lot about affordability, affordable housing. You hear a lot about student housing, and you hear you hear mostly about those two things. I mean, it's affordable housing is tough, period. Anywhere. Right. I mean, it's talked about across the entire country. But what would you say to someone that says that Clemson is not a business friendly town?
So I think that's where some of my banking comes into play, because obviously I work with a lot of businesses, and then how can we change if it's not business friendly? What are the specific reasons why we're not business friendly? Because obviously we're very thankful for those businesses that operate in the city. We also want to help. That's why we do that. Those downtown events that we started doing that we just referred back to earlier, that was all part of it, bringing the community back together, but also supporting the businesses. Now, some we got the feedback, why are you just doing it downtown? That's why we also went out to Patrick Square and tried to expand it out, because we want to support all businesses. But to your point, I always look at it, if somebody says we're not business friendly, you want to kind of peel that onion back a little bit more and ask why. Why does someone think we're not business? How can we improve? I feel like we have a very good team that does a good job within our business licensing, but everybody can always improve. And so we want businesses to come in. We're very thankful for those businesses that come in. And you talk about being it. I love going to ribbon cutting with a new business, but even existing business, very thankful if they change certain things. It's not about the ribbon cuttings. It's about, how do we support them? Not only personally, patronizing them, but, talking them up. Right. So we've been fortunate with a lot of different businesses coming in.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I mean, for me, it's always, obviously, living here, and I've never understood why companies or individuals don't start their businesses here, and you hear, a lot of college towns are kind of like hotbeds for startups. And I just, when I really thought about it, I'm like, why is it that, these smart people that come out of this university just don't choose to stay here and start their businesses? And I mean, there may be a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons that I found in just my polling people is space. I mean, literally the space. There's nowhere. I've had people approach me about wet lab space, dry lab space, or there's no, there aren't buildings that are big enough to accommodate. I mean, a lot of the business you're probably referring to, like the ones downtown, are let's face it, they're restaurants, bars, t-shirt shops. Um, they're not, and those are great. I love those kinds of businesses. But we don't really have a whole lot of businesses outside of those. You got your insurance agents, real estate companies, you got, um, doctor's offices and things like that. So that's why that was kind of the idea. I mean, I know you're probably familiar with my think tank spaces. Those were developed, to help offer up space at a really good rate to individuals that are starting businesses who, may not have the capital to go rent an entire, and the city does require, in those CP2 districts, and I think CP1 require the commercial component on the ground floor. So there are a lot of spaces that are vacant because of that requirement. Some of those are starting to fill up, which is great, but they're filling up with high volume, retail or restaurant type businesses. A startup company, somebody that comes up with a good, good idea, they can't go pay, $28-30 a square foot for, 3,000 square foot space. And so we
totally agree.
Yeah. So that was the idea behind the think tank is, we have these offices and they have shared, conference room amenities. And we've had some pretty cool businesses that have come through. And eventually they outgrow the space, because they need something bigger. I mean, we had a company called Aptus that was occupied one of our spaces, and he was actually growing. And I might butcher this, but really cool guy to start. He was growing pig valves, or doing pig valves or something, for heart transplants and stuff. I mean, like more things like that. Tracting businesses like that. Like, are we doing anything? From an economic development standpoint to, I know all our focus tends to be on pushing housing away, but like, are we doing anything to try to attract those types of businesses to get them to want to come, start their businesses here and hopefully grow those businesses here and stay here,
So I think it's going to take time, to your point. So, downtown right now, the university just did their incubator space.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really specific.
They were at the think tank and then they moved over.
Yeah.
But just it's an awesome space. Yeah.
So, but over time, I mean, there's needs to be a collaborative effort. And I say needs to be. I mean, I look forward to that collaborative effort of creating that space and keeping people within the city, like you said. So that could see that. I've served on the Tri-County as the longest served. I mean, when I say this title is Tri-County, and I'm not going to butcher it. I may not get it correctly, but it's Tri-County Entrepreneurial Development Corporation Board. And so literally the Tri-County area, Coney, Pickens, and of course Anderson technically, but it's more focused actually in Oconee County. But I've served on that board, Tri-County Tech representatives, who's been on there as well. But the county for Oconee County is literally given space to let startups start. We need those types of things. But to your point, where can you find the space at a reasonable price? Because I'm getting my point, because it's so expensive. Mm-hmm. You can't pay $25 per square foot. I get it. So you have to try to create that space. And so that's a challenge, but I look at it as there could be some opportunities. And we didn't talk about one of the projects that we'll be partnering with them. Kadera used to be Packlet Milliken. Mm-hmm. Have over 250 acres.
I was getting there. Yeah.
Okay. So you think about it, they'll start doing their residential first, and then over time, there'll be opportunities in the commercial space. And how can we partner with them? I believe Jennifer, who, is a liaison and
Jennifer Calabria. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She's on the Upstate Alliance board. And so she gets the economic impact. She understands, like, it's right across from the vet school, what that's going to do from impact. But just having those discussions, and discussions only take it so far, but also talking about where can we all partner together and help, that's part of, partnering on the commercial side, and there's space there. So that's where, those discussions, but that is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen just overnight. But let me go back to what like Oconee County is doing. And I say Oconee, it really is a tri-county area, but they specifically dedicated space, and that's what it took. That's what we need to do as well, because once you get that dedicated space, you can have different businesses come in, and they do a really good job giving them very affordable leases and let their businesses grow. And then once they've grown to a level, they don't kick them out, but they basically say, okay, you've grown to a level. It's time for you to invest back in your community in some other capacity, and then let the next person come in here. And so I think it's
That's
worked
the
out well.
Think Oconee campaign.
It's the Think Oconee, but it's also part of, it's an organization. Dave Eldridge has done a fabulous job leading that, and he was with the Commerce Department, and he's right there at the Oconee Alliance space, right up from 123, and he's done a fabulous job leading it. And there have been many people on the part of the board, but he's been the leader, and he's done a great job. And incorporating some of those things back to the city of Clemson, I think would be really helpful, because we have run into, you said, what are the businesses that we need? And there's certain businesses I think we're lacking. Now, some we'll start contacting some of the businesses, and we'll say, why aren't you in the city of Clemson? And they'll say, well, the demographics don't support it. And then we're like, okay, so what does it take? What, define it a little bit more than other just say it just doesn't. I'm big on, if someone says no, kind of ask why and then find out and then go from there. So I think as we evolve, I think it'll be better on the commercial side, and I think more opportunities. Patrick Square has done a pretty good job about creating that environment for the residents throughout the city, I think, as well. So I mean, there's different examples.
Yeah. Well, what about? Do you think there could be other zoning designations that would better accommodate? Like, let's say that. I mean, how cool would it be if Clemson? And then this really fits into the annexation because we do have land limitations. But how cool would it be if Clemson itself had a research park? I mean, I know we've got the one out there in Pendleton off 187, right, but it's in the county. But how cool would it be if you had a small, small research park that? And I don't know, is there a zoning designation in city that would accommodate it?
I'm not aware of a specific
and that's
one. So, but to your point, and you say that's Clemson University that has the research park. It's not in the city, obviously, and you know that it's in the county, Anderson County, technically.
Right, but I think there are a lot of people that I've talked to that I think would love to start their business in Clemson, but it's just difficult. There's either the zoning doesn't allow for what they want. So, I mean, we kind of lend ourselves you tell me if I'm totally off base with it. We kind of lend ourselves to being more residential, and the types of businesses that we really attract or really, cater more to the students, which they should. I mean, that we're a college town. But you hear a lot of residents that say they want different things, but we tend to focus on the things we don't want, but we don't, they do. I'm saying in general, like, don't focus on trying to get the things that we do want. We put a lot of effort into, pushing away the things we don't want, and not a lot of effort into pulling the things in that we do want. And I also I should let you talk.
You're fine. It's all good.
But, we, now I lost my thought, but we tend to try to track or push away the things that we don't want. We don't try to pull in the things that we do want. And you hear a lot of those people, they say we want this and we want that, but okay, well, you've got to have the people, the people like in our demographic, our age group, to support those a lot of those types of business that they're asking for. And so, and how do you get those people here? Well, you gotta have industry. You gotta have those types of companies locate here in order to attract those types of people, to get the numbers up to, because how many times have you heard, hey, we need a local joint for the residents, like a bar, or we need more restaurants, or we need more clothing stores. And well, those clothing stores, the ones that are here, are there to support the biggest customer base. And do you see where I'm going with this? It's
I see
just
where
like,
you're going.
so
Yeah.
it's like, it's kind of like a chicken and the egg. It's like,
Yeah.
you got to have, so I personally would like to see us try to attract businesses, more businesses, like
No, I
different businesses.
totally agree. And I'll go into, you just brought up a great point. Let's think about the old, basically, buy low space right there
Yeah.
that was being proposed for student housing. That is not zoned for student housing. It's zoned for commercial. And that was part of Clemson X, or workforce housing. So you said not to talk about housing, but we're going to talk about a little bit here. So, planning commission, we really weren't supposed to talk about it until after planning commission talked about it, which they said, there was there was a developer that wanted to present student housing, and they all voted it down because they wanted to keep that commercial space. They want to keep those commercial opportunities. And I would have done the same thing. And I won't speak for the other six on council. I assume they would have done the same thing as well. Goes to your point. We know there's commercial businesses that are needed here that residents want. And how do you make sure you protect what's already here, but also expand from that? And then show the demographics that show it. I use the example also, if you go over the bridge, that's in Oconee County. Those retail stores are being supported. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I see the cars and people are using them. So it goes back to, you have that challenge of space, you have that challenge. So that's why we don't want to eliminate. So that was a prime example. The old Balo, stay commercial. It needs to stay commercial because there should be hopefully future opportunities of bringing in some of those businesses you're talking about. But I'm using an example right across the bridge that people did bring in the businesses and they've been successful, at least from a car, and they've been in business now for 2 or 3 years. To me, that shows success, especially if you make it past, make it past that first year. That's a big deal. So there's opportunities.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important to point out too that what makes, I mean, what I do for a living. I mean, what makes the most sense is student housing. I mean, you can pay a premium for the land. You can pay, I mean, you can, if the zoning allows, you can typically get the density that you need to support the land costs and development costs and everything. But it's really difficult. Like, I look at the Highway 93 corridor from the buy low. I mean, that parcel is so expensive. It's going to take something special to go there to make that all turn out to be all commercial, or make it be what we would like for it to be. I mean, I think most everybody probably would agree that we don't want to see that turn into a student housing project, and that's coming from a student housing developer.
Well, so you said that.
So, but from an economic standpoint, like that's the only thing that's viable to go there right now. Right. I think, but you've got that whole entire corridor, Highway 93 corridor, up and down that road there, that's like ripe for commercial. And I think you could attract a lot of businesses up through there if it were zoned properly. It's zoned RM1. And I know there's a lot of political pressure to keep those residential districts, let them stay the same. But that to me is a corridor that makes sense for it to be commercial, both sides of the road, and it's a high traffic area. But I think, let's face it, the businesses that would attempt to go in those areas either don't have the capital or the financial resources to go through a rezoning process, or to acquire the land and sit on it until they're able to get it rezoned. So, can you speak to that? Like, would you agree that corridor maybe is the most logical direction for businesses?
Well,
at this point?
I kind of just said it in some respects, like the Balo.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, it's fine.
But,
no, I mean, you're fine.
But that's a big parcel.
No, that's a big parcel, and like you said, and I'll go back to what you just said. Yeah, if a price is certain, you got to look at what somebody's coming in for their return on their investment. When they see a price tag, let's say it's $8 million. I'll just throw that. I'm not saying what it is, but I don't know what it is. But you have to make sure you get your return on investment. I get it. I do get that. That's a little bit of the banker coming into play for me. but then you also have that discussion with whoever. Can they think, I wouldn't say outside the box, but they can think about, okay, how can they make it work from a commercial perspective of, so it's not student housing per se. Because like I said, there are certain areas that have been designated for student housing within Clemson. And obviously recently there was a project that was passed that was designated for higher density, right across from Abernathy. But it also, and while we're talking about, I'll talk about that one real quickly. That will also enhance Abernathy Park. Where the plan is, and that's where I feel like we've followed through with what we say we're going to do. The plan is to go all the way to Wendy's. And so it's not that the boardwalk doesn't go there right now, but how do you make it where it's more community friendly? It's community friendly, but I think there's opportunities to enhance it, to go all the way from Wendy's back to JC Park. And so those are the types of things. So when you start talking about student housing or you're talking about commercial designated areas, so let's go back to the 93 corridor. Absolutely is a corridor that could be certain areas within commercial space that businesses I think could thrive. Certain businesses have come, and certain businesses thankfully have stayed and survived, and I'll go back and said thrive, but you got to create that opportunity. So I'm going to your point now. You got to create that opportunity to create that space, and we are limited from an industry side. We don't really have. Eric, you tell me our largest industry.
Clemson University.
There you go. And then what's the second one?
Duke.
Well, not Duke, because they're not necessarily based.
Well, they're not. I guess they're not here.
But really, if you think about it, we don't have. Let's start again. I'm not trying to compare us to Oconee County, but there are manufacturers there that they have the space. Itron, large that are supporting many families, and it makes it more challenging for us because it's I would love for everybody that works at Clemson University or any business to live in Clemson, but I think it's very difficult to live in Clemson now because the price has gone up so much. It's a challenge to balance that, and that's what our difficulty is. So now I went back to housing again.
Yeah.
So,
well, it always circles back to housing, and it's a function of supply and demand.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that there's an oversupply of housing. I mean, I know firsthand because of what we do. That's wrong. I go to an annual conference down in Austin, Texas, where all the it's a who's who of student housing, and a lot of eyes are on Clemson, and they love the barriers to entry. The institutional groups love the high barriers to entry. The more the better, because they are the groups that are better able to put those deals together. Like the little guys like me, it's harder for me to put together a deal. I have limited resources, but those guys, they'll throw a ton of money at deals. They'll be doing that all over the country. And so, my opinion is unpopular. It's, try to infuse as much supply as quickly as possible because that's what's going to make it less attractive to come here. But infusing the supply in the right areas, and you touched on that with the plan that was put out, designated areas for those. And the hub, I mean, now the big elephant in the room, I mean, I understand that it wasn't popular amongst a big group of people, but that area probably did make the most sense to absorb a lot of that supply.
Well, I'll say my own personal opinion. It's not everything that we would want, but when we worked with the group core, there were a lot of things that we got that we will enhance Abernathy. It does fit within Clemson Next of designated area. With that said, I mean, it goes back to we're following those guidelines of how, and it is going to limit now that area for high density because basically there's a max amount that was part of that plan. And so I think that's a good thing as well for the future. So then there are going to be other areas within Clemson they'll be focused on. And so, but I think to your point, I would love to see more, not focused necessarily on student housing, focused on commercial opportunities, bring in what, not only residents, but the whole community. I mean, when I say residents, but I'm going to say it like this, what the whole community wants. Because so they don't have to drive to Anderson. They don't have to drive to Greenville. But we keep on going back to housing. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about, we are, it's a baby step baby step, but we got a grant thanks to our deputy administrator. We bought some land off of 76 across from Dawson's Park, diagonal from Dawson's Park, that there will be workforce housing there. And it's over time, probably get in 20 to 24 units there. That's a first good step. And, we can use that as a role model going forward. How do you created that? That's basically almost 3 acres right there. You possibly get, I keep on saying 20 to 24 units in there. But that'll be workforce housing. And we need way more than that. And that's part of working with Clemson University. They have more land. I say more land. They have a lot of land. That there's possibilities there too. So anyway, we keep on going back to housing.
We do keep on going back. I'm trying to steer away from it.
It's just a tough one because I'm having a challenge because, when you look at the median price, this, you're the expert, not me. But when the median price home is what, $375 in Clemson now, I never thought we'd say that. It's pretty mind-boggling. $375,000.
Right.
That's mind-boggling. I mean, I grew up in Camelot. I know exactly what my parents paid for that house. Mm-hmm. It was, when they built it, it was probably low 100,000.
Right.
I know things change. I know there's costs of doing business, but it's making it really tough. Because to get people, I would love for everybody to live in the city. I just think we're not creating, and I don't. That's the biggest challenge is trying how to create it. How do you get more families? And I'm going to emphasize the word families. I mean, I'd love for more young families to be in the city. I think we do have a lot of young families in the city, but I'd love to see more.
Yeah, and I think where I always get to is like we got to figure out how to attract something other than student housing. Again, this is how I make my living, but and I'm probably crazy for even saying that, but if you really want those things, it's like you got to make it less attractive for developers like myself to want to do student housing and more attractive to do those other types. And so the projects that are the most feasible are student housing, and not commercial. Like I look at the Pendleton, that corridor, the 76, like where had that tremendous growth, and right there, we're starting at the main red light there at Dairy Queen and the all that from there the about a half a mile towards Anderson, all those businesses that have popped up right in there because of, maybe because Clemson, maybe those would have gone in Clemson. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think you're right. Cause the space, it's more, I would think the price of land was more reasonable, and our whole region's growing. And to your point, you got more people coming in, you got more people that need certain types of businesses. So they've justified it. And so they made it work. And if you think about it, think about 76, on that backside behind like the Waffle House. That's really, truly workforce housing right back there. And that's bringing a lot of new people into the community. That's into the town of Pendleton. But, it's all part of us growing as we're all growing as a region. And, it's in Central, it's easily, you name it, 6 Mile. And that's why, like, even last night when I was telling you that we met the Pickens County Municipal, I love that we're all meeting together because we're talking about same challenges, but we're also talking about the positives that we're all experiencing. How can we work together? Because we're all in this together. It's not just a Clemson thing. It's not just a Pendleton thing. It's
right.
Central, whatever, however you want to say it.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So real quick, I know we're probably running out of time. I told you I wouldn't take up too much of your time. This has been great. I could probably talk to you for hours, but I know. Are there any other projects that you're excited about or that are going on in the city that aren't student housing?
So now I get to talk about the good stuff, and some people won't say this is good stuff, by the way. So if you didn't know, we got almost $9 million in rescue funds, and it goes back to what do the community see as what's the most important thing? Our infrastructure. I know this doesn't sound exciting, but it's one of those things that there are a lot of municipalities that receive rescue funds that they put it towards quality of life, like a peace center or things like that, or performing arts. I should say peace center, but performing arts like facility. We literally we used the majority of it to work underneath our roads. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but I think it was the right thing to do because it's something that's needed within our city.
You talking about like infrastructure, like
Underneath
sewer and water upgrades,
you name it, upgrades from anything,
drainage.
and then basically once we're finally finished with it, it'll pave the road. But here's the challenge: we're doing a lot of that, which is great, and I'm very thankful for it. And it's literally going to be $7 million, and we'll accomplish around 5 or 6 miles. Doesn't sound like a lot, does it? When you think about the city has 65 to 70 miles, we're accomplishing, I can do the math pretty quickly, 10% of our roads underneath with infrastructure. So there's a lot more that we could do, but we were lucky that, I should say lucky, it was part of the federal government giving you rescue funds to help municipalities. But again, our priorities are, that's the number one issue is our infrastructure. How do we start addressing it? And it's nothing against how it was done in the past. We got this large amount. Let's, put it to use and start working on it. But I can say years ago, what was allocated for roads was $300,000 a year. That will not accomplish anything.
Right.
So we've had to do a better job of refocusing how, and it is money related on this one, is how do you refocus the dollars to accomplish more? Because 300,000 we weren't accomplishing. And again, I mean, I know that was the mentality in the past, but you got to change that mentality. So that's not really fun stuff, but I think it's
important.
It's in focusing on the right thing. But the fun stuff coming up, just for everybody's benefit, obviously, we'll have a Juneteenth celebration coming up in June, obviously. And then also we have fireworks July 3rd for the first time.
It's coming back.
But now this is our first step to come back in a slow way, but it'll be cool because we'll be shooting them over the lake. And so
we're not at the Y Beach.
It'll be near the Y Beach. Not at the Y Beach, but it'll be near the Y Beach. And so we'll make sure we're starting getting this announcement out. But there's not a community type like gathering place, but it'll be our start to start bringing the community back on July 4th, the type of event, if it's July 3rd or whenever the date is. So I'm excited about that coming up. Of course, we talked about on the Ave that we've had the last Tuesday night. I thought last night was great. Perfect weather. Had a lot of people out. Had a great Luke played. He's a great guy. If you ever get a chance to meet Luke Deuce, he's already done great things and continue to do great things. I'm happy for him and his family. With that said, that's coming up. Well, not coming up, happened, but come up in the future. And then we'll keep on celebrating the championships and the accomplishments.
Hopefully we keep winning
more. And then Nettles Park, there'll be more parking out there. That's something that's been needed for years. And so I could go down and if you ever need anything, anybody can call me. The scary thing is I tell people, I shouldn't say scary. People know my cell phone number because I literally put it out there. And they're like, why do you do that? I said, I'd rather them call me. I'd rather anybody call me if they have a question. And I feel like that's where we add value. And, I've learned a lot from my experience. Hopefully I continue doing it. We'll see what happens on that. Hopefully the community still wants me to lead in the capacity I'm leading in. But yeah, there's a lot of great things going on. There's a lot of good momentum going on. So, but again, I said it at the beginning, all our leaders have done a fabulous job within the city and city employees. And I didn't even talk about our police department. We're almost fully staffed. I'm very thankful for that. But we got a great team there as well. And I could have gone to Public Works and the whole Parks and Rec, you name it. We're fortunate.
Yeah, you are. Well, we appreciate your service. No, you don't get a lot of praise, and appreciate
not why we do it.
Yeah, it's not why you do it, but we appreciate you, and I know we've probably butted heads a few times, maybe over the years, but I do have a lot of respect for you and everybody that does what you do, and I do really appreciate you coming on the podcast with me, and hopefully, we'll do it again.
Well, can I add one last thing?
Yeah.
So what you just said about butting heads, I'm good with that. As long if you can agree to disagree, and I think that's where we've lost. And I could go on a whole soapbox on this. You can agree to disagree. Everybody has their different positions. As long as everybody knows the facts, and I'll emphasize that. I think sometimes we make up our own facts. And as long as you know the facts, and then if you have differing opinions, I respect that. I mean, that's what I think we've lost a little bit of. And so I think that's a compliment to you that we may have disagreed on certain things, but that we also know that I've done my research, you've done your research, and we've said, okay, this is what I think's the best for the community. You might think differently, slightly, and then we keep on moving forward because we all want what's in the best interest of the whole community.
Yeah.
You want what's best for your daughters. You want what's best for future generations, and I do too. So I think that's what we've lost in some capacities. But hopefully we can get it back.
Yeah. And to that point, I'll say, I think it's real important to recognize that we're all human beings too. And, I think that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, in any issue, is like that there's a tendency for those that don't agree to try to demonize those that don't agree with them. And I totally disagree with that. And I think that's not the way we should be. I think you hit it on the nose. I think it's just like you agree to disagree. And, I don't think anybody thinks that what they're doing is going to be bad for the community. They just happen to think that the way they think is the best thing for the community. And there has to be a level of respect. And, I know we live in a cancel culture, and, if you disagree with somebody, people feel like you have to go on social media and bash them. I mean, we see all this on Nextdoor and Facebook, and, I've had my fair share of criticism. We all have had our fair share, but I don't like that. And I think that, we're all children of God, and we got to remember that first, and be respectful of each other's opinions and everything. And even if we don't agree, we just agree, like you said, agree to disagree, and hope for the best. And so I do believe that our political system is the best in the world, and this is a great place to live, and we just have to trust the process. And so,
well said.
yeah. So, but again, I really appreciate you being on the podcast. Hopefully, we can do it again.
I'll look forward to it. I appreciate the opportunity. I know I'm not a Clemson University football player, but that's okay. I saw the last one was one of the football players, and I'm like, yeah, you got me. But that's okay.
No, we're gonna bring a lot of interesting folks, and on the podcast we've got a lot of people lined up, and I'm glad you said yes, and I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
This has been another Experience Matters podcast with Eric Newton. Thank you.